Welcome back. If you are here again, you already know that around here we explore what's hidden in quiet moments, the shadows in familiar places, the things most people overlook or try to forget. We've already explored a few stories like this. Real accounts, dark corners, unexplained patterns. And if you're new here, you might want to check those out too. If this kind of thing speaks to you, strange truths, buried meanings, questions that don't go away, then maybe, just maybe you found the right place. And if that's the case, consider sticking around. Subscribe. Tonight's story takes us somewhere familiar. Your daily commute, your morning routine, your favorite seat on the train. But routine does not always mean safety. Sometimes, the ordinary becomes the doorway, and what waits on the other side doesn't wear horns or claws. It wears a suit, a smile, and it is close to you. Let's begin.
I've never really talked about this before. Not online, not to my friends. Only my wife knows the full story, and even she gets uneasy when I bring it up. But tonight, I can't sleep, and it's like my brain wants me to remember. So, here it is. My name's Jeremy. I was 24 back then, working a soul-sucking job for a manager that made Satan look like a life coach. I'm not even joking. The guy once made a girl with a broken leg come into the office because crutches aren't a reason to miss deadlines. Anyway, it was a Thursday. I hadn't slept at all. The night before, insomnia had been kicking my ass for a week. And that night I made the dumb decision to scroll through YouTube and Reddit until 6 a.m. I think I watched like 3 hours of dashcam crashes. Dumb, I know. I somehow dragged myself out of bed around 7:15, threw on yesterday's hoodie, and walked like a zombie to my usual coffee shop right outside the street. It's a routine black coffee, 2 sugars, and one of those triple chocolate cookies they always overheat just enough to melt the chips. That cookie was the only joy I had before sitting in that office for 9 hours. It was a Thursday. I remember because I hated Thursdays. Close enough to the weekend to make me restless, but far enough that it felt like a trap. Anyway, I got on the train, same as always. It was crowded at first, but it started to thin out slowly. I managed to get a seat near the middle of the car, sipped my coffee, and the rhythm of the train just rocked me right to sleep. I don't know how long I was out, but when I woke up, everything was wrong. The train was still moving, but it felt like we were going too fast, much faster than normal. The lights inside the car were dim and flickering like something from a horror movie. And there were no people, not even the occasional weirdo or drunk, just me, alone. Except I wasn't alone. 2 men seated at the far end. They were facing each other, not speaking. One was whistling the same 5-note tune over and over, a haunting little melody that got under my skin. The other just nodded his head rhythmically, over and over, whistle, nod, whistle, nod. They looked like something out of an old photograph. Black suits, brown ties, black hats with flat brims. Their clothes were clean but wrong, too crisp, like they hadn't been worn, just placed there, like mannequins pretending to be people. At first, I thought they were just nutcases. Chicago's full of them. But these guys weren't muttering or twitching. They were still, methodical, polished, unsettling. I looked at my wristwatch, an old silver one my dad gave me on my 20th birthday. The second hand had stopped. It was stuck at 8:12, which is the time I usually get on the train. Something about that made my skin crawl. I pulled out my phone. Dead. Not just dead, black screen, totally unresponsive. I remembered I hadn't charged it after watching YouTube all night. I sighed. Shit. Just wonderful. Then, for some reason, I called out to them. "Excuse me, do you know what time it is?" The whistling stopped mid-note. The nodding stopped mid-motion. And slowly, perfectly synchronized, both of their heads turned toward me. Their faces were so still, so precise, it was like looking into a wax museum. Their expressions were wrong. Their faces looked like they'd been sculpted in anger, eyes narrow, lips tight, brows furrowed like stone. It wasn't just anger, it was disappointment, rage disguised as politeness. I looked down immediately. "Excuse me," I muttered. My heart was pounding. I could feel their eyes on me, burning holes into the top of my skull. I didn't dare look back up. I sat there, frozen, counting seconds that felt like hours, waiting for the train to slow down. But it didn't. It just kept rushing forward, faster and faster, deeper into the tunnel. No announcements, no familiar screech of brakes, just endless motion. Then I heard footsteps. I looked up, just a little, and saw that the nodding man had stood and was walking down the aisle toward me. His footsteps echoed unnaturally loud in the empty train car. He stopped in front of me. Then, slowly, he sat across from me, legs crossed, arms resting on his knees, eyes locked directly on mine. I felt like my lungs weren't working. I was visibly shaking now, but I managed to croak out, "Hello, sir. Do you know what time it is?" My watch stopped, and I think I overslept. He raised his hand and made a slow stop gesture.
"You're new,"
he said. His voice was low, old, and dry, like wind blowing through an attic. At the far end of the car, the other man burst into loud, echoing laughter. Then he went back to whistling, louder now. "What do you mean?" I asked, barely audible.
"What is your name, boy?"
The man asked. "Jeremy," I answered.
"Do you know where you are, Jeremy?"
I swallowed hard. "On the train." The other man laughed again, a sharp, metallic sound that made my blood run cold. The man across from me leaned in slightly.
"Correct, but look again. Is this your train, Jeremy?"
I looked around. The seats were the same. The windows were the same. But everything was off. The grime on the floor had strange symbols in it. The ads on the walls had no words, just warped images, blurry eyes, faceless people, empty fields. "It looks like it," I said.
"You are dying, Jeremy."
He said calmly, like he was reading off a weather report. I laughed nervously. "Excuse me?"
"You had a heart attack, right there in your seat."
He pointed to where I was sitting.
"You are somewhere between."
No, I'm awake. I'm talking to you."
"Yes, but this is the in-between. Not yet dead, not quite alive."
I stood up. My legs barely worked. "Is this hell?"
"Not yet."
he said. He turned and pointed to the window. I looked out, squinting into the darkness. At first, I saw nothing. Then, movement. Things were running alongside the train. Big things. Their bodies were dog-like, but too long, too fast. Their mouths were wide, full of black teeth. And there were hundreds of them.
"If the train stops, they'll take you, and you won't be coming back."
I couldn't breathe. I turned back to him. "Please, I don't want to die." He stared at me for a long moment. Then he looked down at my wrist.
"You're not taking very good care of your watch."
He reached out and touched it with one finger. Suddenly, the watch ticked. The second hand jumped to life. The face looked cleaner, newer.
"You've been given time."
He stood. Without another word, he walked back to the other man. Suddenly, the lights in the train began to brighten. A soft hum filled the air. I looked up into them, drawn in like a moth. Everything started spinning. Then, white. bright, sterile white. I was in a hospital bed. There were tubes in my arms. My throat felt like sandpaper. Machines beeped gently beside me. My mother was there. Her eyes were red. My brother was sitting in the corner, holding a worn hoodie I hadn't seen in weeks.
Jeremy?
She whispered. I tried to sit up, but my body didn't cooperate. She burst into tears, shouting for the nurse. They told me I'd collapsed on the train. Paramedics had found me slumped over, no pulse. I'd had a massive cardiac event and diagnosed heart condition. Apparently, they brought me back with CPR and defibrillators, but I slipped into a coma. I'd been out for 27 days. The doctors had just started telling my family to prepare for the worst. They didn't think I was going to wake up, but I did. And that's not the weirdest part. About 2 days later, when I was more lucid, I looked at my wrist. The watch. It was spotless, polished like new, like someone had restored it. Not a single scratch, not a smudge, not even a fingerprint. I asked my mum, did someone clean my watch while I was here? She gave me a confused look.
Your watch? I mean, you had it on when they brought you in. We didn't touch it.
But it was dirty before. The glass had a chip. The band was scratched. She shook her head.
I don't remember it being scratched.
I stared at the watch for a long time that night. Later that week, after I was moved out of ICU, my mum told me something else.
The night before you woke up,
She said, lowering her voice.
a strange man came into the room.
I looked at her, heart beginning to pound.
He was dressed kind of old-fashioned. Black suit, brown tie, black hat. Said he had the wrong room. But before he left, he looked at you for a long time, smiled. Then he walked out.
She said he didn't speak again. Just stared for what felt like a full minute, then gone. I didn't say anything. What could I say? I don't know what happened. Maybe it was a dream. Maybe my dying brain pulled together all the strange images I've ever seen online and made a story out of it. Maybe that's all it was.
Science has a tidy little explanation for everything. You lose consciousness, and your brain, deprived of oxygen, starts firing off nonsense. Disjoint memories, hallucinations, bits and pieces of your life stitched into an abstract tapestry to comfort you as you fade out. The dying brain theory, they call it. Doctors would say Jeremy was simply experiencing what's known as hypnagogic hallucination during cardiac arrest, a result of the brain releasing dimethyltryptamine, or DMT. In the final moments of life, a dream built from fear, exhaustion, and memory fragments. One last illusion before the lights go out. That's neat, convenient, but it doesn't explain the watch. And it damn sure does not explain the man who visited Jeremy's hospital room. So let's do what we came here to do, and step off the tracks of science into the shadows. Theory 1. The psychopomps. What Jeremy encountered may have been ancient, older than trains, cities, or even organized religion. In nearly every culture there are entities known as psychopomps, guides of souls from the land of the living to the realm of the dead. Sometimes they appear as animals, sometimes as people, but they always arrive when the soul is drifting, neither here nor there. The two men in black, identical suits, motionless faces, mechanical patterns of whistling and nodding, fit the archetype perfectly. They're not human. They are watchers, gatekeepers, possibly even collectors. The nodding may be a form of approval or judgment. The whistling, a signal, a call, perhaps to those things running outside the train. Their presence suggests that the train was not just a hallucination, it was a liminal vessel, a metaphysical in-between, ferrying a soul into limbo. The way they tested Jeremy, it wasn't random. It was a choice, a judgment. And when one touched his watch and reunited his time, that wasn't kindness. It was permission. The psychopomps gave him back the hours they almost took. Theory 2. A pocket reality. A trap between dimensions. There is another possibility, one more sinister. Jamie may have been caught in what some occult texts call a pocket plane, a fold in space and time, formed by stress, death, or trauma, where reality distorts. A kind of trap. These folds are believed to form naturally in places of high psychic pressure, trains, hospitals, hotels, places where people hover between life and death. In this case, the train becomes the construct, the physical manifestation of Jeremy's struggle between survival and surrender. The passengers, manifestations of the false consciousness, beings designed to test, torment, or simply observe. The warped ads, the symbols in the grime, the lack of time, those are classic signs of synthetic dimension decay. This is not just a dream, it's a simulation built by something older than science can map. Maybe it feeds on the fear, maybe it studies choice. The train never stopped, because the moment it does, the fold collapses, and the creatures outside, they are not metaphor, they are cleaners, predators. They take what doesn't escape. Theory 3. The Bureau of the Dead. There is a theory, one passed down through whispers, that there exists a bureau that manages the boundaries between death and life, an ancient invisible organization. Not quite angelic, not demonic either, something else. Some say they wear black suits and fedoras, walk in pairs, speak in riddles, and operate on rules known only to them. They don't kill, but they decide who moves on. And sometimes, when a soul clings to life just hard enough, they offer a deal. The man who appeared in Jeremy's hospital room fits this idea. Not a hallucination, not a nurse, not a relative. He was not there to say goodbye. He was there to confirm something, to watch the result of a judgment rendered inside the train. It might not have been a gift. It might have been a warning, because no one said Jeremy passed the test, just that he was given time. And time, when it comes from things like that, is never free. Now let's talk about some details. Why we are just two men? Well, in many occult systems and mythologies, the number 2 symbolizes duality, life and death, good and evil, choices and consequence. These two men could be opposing forces, representing two outcomes. One wants Jeremy to pass through, the other to stay. Or they are a single unit, two sides of the same force, one observing, one judging. Their mirrored behavior, lack of individual identity, and synchronicity suggest they are not people. They are constructs, functions. This could also connect to ancient ideas like Egyptian duat, where soul is judged in afterlife. Two figures, one watches, one waits. Why was Jeremy alone in the train? The train has no other passengers because this was not a shared journey. It was tailored, built for Jeremy. This supports the idea of a liminal space, a spiritual or psychological realm built only for the person dying. No crowd, no distractions. Just Jeremy and the forces evaluating him, like an empty courtroom with only the judge and the accused. If there had been more people, it would imply chaos or collective experience. But the eerie solitude, that's intentional focus. It wasn't about the train, it was about him. On a psychological level, the empty train and two men heighten the terror. Isolation makes the unreal feel more real. It's a tactic used in dreams and in traps. Cut you off from your world, then present figures of authority or control. Jeremy was not just a passenger. He was a prey, a lab rat in the sterilized tunnel, being studied by two things that didn't need a crowd. And sometimes, they are only two because they only need to be two. How could Jeremy's watch change? Jeremy's watch is more than a keepsake. It's the anchor, a tether to time, reality, and his identity. Time stopped when his heart did. Time resumed when the entity allowed it. And then, something was different. Let's dig into why and how it could be clean. Supernaturally, the watch was repaired in the in-between. When the suited man touched the watch and said, "You've been given time," that was not metaphor, it was mechanism. He didn't say, "You've been given more time to live." He repaired time itself, your time. The cleaned, restored watch is evidence that something physically changed in a space that shouldn't affect the real world. In many metaphysical systems, occultism, Gnosticism, shamanic journeys, sacred objects and spiritual realms can affect the physical world, especially if the object is symbolic. In this case, it's as if the man did not just save Jeremy's soul, he rewound his fate. The cleaned watch wasn't cleaned, it was a reset, like a cursed item being blessed. Or maybe the cleaned watch could be a mark, a signature that says, "This one's being touched, chosen, not to be taken." Weirder still, maybe the cleaning of the watch is protection. Anyway, this was not a dream, this was an encounter with something Jeremy was not meant to survive, but did, because something led him. The question isn't what happened to him, the question is what now lives with him, unseen, ticking inside every second he's been given. So was Jeremy dreaming in his dying moments? Or did he briefly step beyond the veil, onto a train that doesn't run on tracks, but through the thin border between this world and what waits behind it? Two men in black, a haunting whistle, a broken watch made whole. If it was all just the mind's last gasp, it was awfully detailed, too intentional. Some stories don't scream for attention, they whisper, and the ones that whisper are the ones worth listening to. Thanks for riding this one to the end. If you like stories that don't just scare but linger, then you might want to stick around. There is a lot more where this came from. Consider subscribing, no pressure. But if you like the dark, I make it a little more navigable. And one last thing, if you ever come across a ritual online that promises something too strange or too tempting, don't. Sometimes they work. And sometimes, like Jeremy found out, you don't get to come back the same. Sleep well tonight. I'll see you in the next one.